be helpful too. Welcome, Olivia. So the topic of today is building off where we were last time. And last time we really looked kind of deep at equality, starting back at equality, where we all are inherently valuable and matter simply because we are. We don't have to do or be anything. That's equality, that we have value simply because we are, even if that experience is not how the world treats us. And I spoke a little bit about this vertical ladder, this vertical power. Our culture has a vertical structure of power and resources and dominance and othering. And it's personal all the way to the collective. And it's an illusion of our truth, because our path here, this whole work is actually waking up to and living the values, the truth, capital T truth, that we actually are all connected. Things that I do affect you and vice versa. We are all one. That the collective is the personal and the personal is the collective. You know, we no longer, the global world is the same as our world. We can't, we get pollution from all over the world. When a war happens in some part of the world, it affects our food supply. The pandemic showed us that we are all one. There's all kinds of pressures out there. Climate change that remind us every day of this capital T truth that we really are connected. And it's breaking down this vertical power resource structure that I've also symbolized as the long cross, because it's out of proportion on the left. And justice and equity and inclusion work is work along with other work that's changing that vertical structure to horizontal. That's what we're doing, where equality really is the ultimate goal. And we don't need to be, we don't need DEI programs, because our systems and our values and our beliefs and our experiences are treating us as equal, that we all matter, our individuality matters and contributes to the collective health and wealth of the whole. It's not this binary thinking. We are living today, right now, 2,000 years worth of this vertical power structure. And we're shown again through all these pressures. I call climate change, increases insurance, access to healthcare, all the pressures that we're seeing, the political divisiveness, all of that are pressures that show us and provide an opportunity that show us where we are not all living for a variety of reasons as one. And the call is to evolve, to bring a different energy to new soil versus finding ways to repeat what we're doing and stay the same and suffer, if you will. Another way to word that calling is to be in alignment, that to live, that we are really all connected, to really actually make decisions that recognize when I do something, it affects you. And we're all organized, the structures and systems we have, all organizations have these siloed missions that don't actually operate in a silo. And so today we're going to explore how we break out of this, one way we break out of this vertical to get into a horizontal power resource structure and culture. I wanted to bring up here that those of us on the horizontal axis, so we're all on the horizontal axis, that's you and me and on our identities and the tribes in our that we identify with. So I'm female, so I identify with that tribe. I may have a religion, I may have another identity. I'm white, I identify with that tribe. I have a college degree, I identify with that tribe. It doesn't matter what the tribes are, if you will, the communities, they're all on that horizontal axis. Some of them have more power on the vertical axis. But any identity and group I identify with or you identify with is excluded from that vertical structure or marginalized, bears the burden and the brunt of this unequal and unjust vertical structure. I know you know this, I'm just putting it in the room because the point I want to bring out today is that when the vertical structure by design pushes the pressure of that burden down to the horizontal identities, and there's nowhere for that energy, that frustration, that power, that energy to go, then we turn it on each other. We turn it on each other. And you can see that when I teach my implicit bias class. I have speakers that talk about, I have one Asian speaker, for example, who speaks about how in her own Asian culture, they do things like make fun of being Asian. They make jokes about it to each other. They demean each other so that they're going to be more accepted in the white-centered gaze, if you will. In the DEI movement, we can easily start to blame and criticize and call each other out for not doing something right or perfect or this or that, and shame somebody in the same community that we're working on because we don't know how to really, that pressure is on us to change everything. So I wanted to call out that this is a true energetic movement, that when that vertical is by design brings that burden and that divisiveness and that negative energy, then we tend to turn it on ourselves in our own communities. And we need to be very conscious of not doing that, because it's another thing that keeps the vertical structure in place. So one of the reflection questions can be, how are you experiencing that, either as a victim or a victimizer, of that calling, you guys know what I'm saying. I can't talk well today, so bear with me. So all of our equality and DEI work is, again, we're being called to who we need to become, our future self, our future capacity and potentials calling us to be in alignment with the natural law, the truth that we are all whole and connected. And as I called out, evolution is a process of learning. So it is going to be uncomfortable. It is going to be messy. It is going to be stressful. It will require those of us that are doing that frontline work of bringing the eyes to this are going to be blamed. And in one of my stories, I have a great story about EPA itself, who started to change and do work on this energy we're going to look at today. If I can get to the next slide. If there's time, I can share the story today. So the component I want to pull out that is a quality of an inclusive and equitable leader is exploring binary thinking and perceptions. What is binary thinking? You all know it. It's black and white thinking, yes or no, either or, my way or your way, I'm right, you're wrong. These are all examples of binary thinking, and that is the primary line of thought in the vertical culture that we're in. It happens on a personal level, interpersonal, organization, and society and culture level. And I want to stop for a minute and think of some ways. Think of a binary, and unmute and give it an example, or put it in the chat, if you will. What is an example of a binary perception that's in our world, that's in our culture? I'll throw one out that's obvious, is that Republicans are amazing and Democrats are demons. Demons are amazing and Republicans are demons. This is so, come on, you guys can come up with some more examples. What are some black and white examples of binary thinking?
People are either good or bad.
Thank you, Nick. People are good or bad. There's nothing in between.
I threw gender in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Read out Jules, would you read out the chat for me when it comes to stuff in there? How about I'm either racist or I'm not.
Janae wrote, women should do the womanly chores in the household.
So black and white roles. How about all women are emotional, men are not.
You're fit or not fit, or you're fat or thin.
Right. Okay. So when you start to look at these binary thinking, there are great sorts to find bias, to find stereotypes. When you say these, how does your body feel? How does it feel when somebody says, well, you're right, I'm wrong. My religion is the only one. We're going to heaven, but you're not. How does your body feel? Does it, give me some words for how your energy, your body feels.
It creates tension.
Tension,
Confusion.
confusion. I get really contracted, like small.
Get angry.
Thank you. Anger is one I get. Yep.
Disagreement just showed up in the chat.
Disagreement, defensiveness is another way to show disagreements.
I think frustrated.
I'm sorry?
Frustrated.
Frustrated. I don't know about you guys, but none of those things are things that I would like to wake up in the morning and say, a cup of coffee of that. I would like to feel more of those things. So the results of binary thinking, what are the outcomes and consequences? Is it connecting behavior? Is it divisive? Is it separating? And you can begin to think about who benefits from these binary ways of thinking. It's definitely entities on that vertical structure. And often it comes in the form of, fat, skinny is better than that. This othering that we talked about last time, supporting that vertical axis. I think we can all agree that binary thinking is not one of the reasons we reject it, is because it is against the law of holism. It is against our nature, that nothing is black and white in life. Nothing. Maybe except death and birth. I don't even know if that's black and white. Because there is a third way, there is a fourth way. And the third and fourth way, if you will, I'd like to use a balance like this to visualize it, or I like to think of a doorway, two pillars, grand pillars. And the extremes are the two pillars. And when you walk through the door, you're creating a third way. You're innovating through the tension of the extremes. The extremes provide a role. They provide this tension, because even life in the middle is including the tensions. It's noticing that there's these two extremes and saying, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm something in between. I'm a mix of that. And you can take even the term, regardless of your beliefs, are like pro-life. Pro-life can mean so many different things. It can mean how you feel about the death penalty, how you feel about abortion, how you feel about genocide. I mean, pro-life can be this really broad. Pro-life can be how you affirm transgender. It's hugely rich, right? Very, very deep, multidimensional. So the thing about third way or fourth ways is it includes the extremes. It includes the center, but the tension and the creative tension of that creates something brand new. It's innovative. Something brand new that is not in the middle or either, or it's above it. Think of a building on top of that balance there. So what are some things, what way can we think and perceive that would help cultivate a third or fourth way? And it's both and thinking. Both and thinking and perceiving is what we're being called to cultivate and learn and do more of. I'm trying to dissect it down here, but you guys do both and thinking all the time. Both and thinking is the desire or the ability or the capacity to perceive energetically in our minds, in our words, in our actions, to hold and process multiple truths, often conflicting or opposite. So holding these paradoxes, so not picking the either or, the black or white. And it's true that these paradoxes exist in our reality. So it's a way to lean in and confront reality, whereas either or thinking is a way to actually manipulate and control and ignore reality, usually for the benefit of a small number of group. So both and thinking is countercultural. Both and thinking and perceiving is going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be stressful. It's not going to be easy. It's not popular often. It's tense. It might make you the target you made us do this, like you shared in Kelly in your acknowledgments. It takes more time. It integrates complexity. So it integrates levels of decision making. So type 1 decision making is when you know the problem and your history knows the solution. So all you have to do is line those up. Type 2 problems are when you know the problem really well, but your history, nothing in history has a clear answer. So you have to innovate. And type 3 is when the problem is very complex, it's hard to define, and there's not a clear answer. Both and thinking is required to really tackle in any evolutionary way type 2 and type 3 problems. It absolutely requires emotional intelligence, because if I get uncomfortable and I get stressed with thinking about holding two paradoxes, and I don't want to manage that stress. I want to get rid of that stress. It's just easier to take a side. And we see that every day. I don't want to deal with that. It's not affecting me. So I'm just going to easily suck into somebody who's saying that's the easiest thing for me. These are all things I can go deeper into, but both and thinking helps you discern between authority and leadership, which is different. It's definitely more inclusive and equitable in a process, and the results then are more equitable, more inclusive. It redistributes power. It redistributes ownership. It lasts longer, and it's much more universal. So it's definitely a skill that's on the path towards holism and living the fact that we are all connected and valued. So I want to go through this exercise with you. So we often talk about these truths, like your truth, my truth, this is the truth, that's the truth. One way to think about truths is there's 4 different kind of truths out there. And I use the capital T is because these are like cosmic, mystical, like truths given down from a power way bigger than any of us. They include the personal truth. So a universal truth would be the earth rotates around the sun. There's a lot of universal truths in nature. I think you get the idea. They're true for everybody. And it doesn't matter if I'm dead or alive, they're going to hold. They held for my grandma. They held for your ancestors. They're going to hold for my children. They're that universal. Then there's relative truth. Relative truth is the sun sets at 6 o'clock for me in mountain time, but it sets at a different time at 6 o'clock for you, Jules, but by then it's 4 o'clock for me. So it's true, but it's relative to a time zone, to a weather pattern. It's relative to something that is universal. Make sense? Then there's personal truths. Personal truth, I don't like broccoli that much. Maybe Olivia loves broccoli. I like to run around barefoot and jump in ice cold water, but Susan doesn't really think that's a very smart thing to do. Personal truths, true to me, not to you. And then there's this sort of what's personal to me as a soul, as a being. You can get religious, you can get cosmic, you can get spiritual with this. This is the idea that you are here for a reason. You are here to be uniquely you. There is nobody else like you. And you are actually here to do and serve and give up and deliver and experience that uniqueness. Call that your soul contract, an agreement, your life purpose, your unique path. Whatever that is your truth. Why is that a truth? It's a truth because, for example, like this, I may want to be an Olympic basketball player. And one time I wanted to be one, and I was on a path to be one, but guess what? It wasn't really in my life purpose. I wanted to be one. I could be all I wanted to be. I could always want that, but it just wasn't it's not in my life. It's not in it's my body. Like I could want to be a musician. It's not going to happen. I don't have the acumen. It's not in my cells. I could work really hard and perfect playing the guitar. I mean, I could do that, but it's actually not in my purpose here. It's not my thing. It's not my calling. It would be a struggle for me to do that compared to the things that come really natural to me. Being a teacher comes natural to me. Being funny and funny comes natural to me. So they're true to me in that soul sort of way. Take that for whatever you want and use your own definition of it. Now, can you raise your hand if you can hold all 4 of these truths at once right now in this moment? Can you accept that I like broccoli and Olivia doesn't? At the same time, I have a personal path. At the same time, the sun sets for me at a different time it does for Susan. At the same time, the earth rotates around the world for everybody, the sun around everybody. Can you hold all 4 of those truths at one time? Yeah, I think you can, because you do every day. Do you do it consciously? Maybe not. Sometimes we get in arguments about certain things around these truths, but you hold these truths every day. Let me give you another example. Visionaries and change agents, and here are some of them, had this ability to have both and thinking precision with the realities of the day and also what was being called to the future, who we were to become. And there's a dark side and a light side to being both and energy. You can use it for good and you use it to cause harm. I personally put billionaires up there because I think that's a symptom of a sickness. I don't see that as a success. I think if a country has billionaires, something's very wrong in our vertical structure. You may not think that. That's my personal truth. There's also darker entities that can be visionary and have both and thinking, and again, used for harm. I didn't list a bunch of them because I didn't want to put that energy in the room. But this is an example of inclusive and equitable leaders that employed both and thinking. So it is a quality and a skill that you have to cultivate because imprinted upon you was binary thinking. You were trained as a child in all of your education to really binary think. It's just imprinted. That's what our culture is and was. But we needed to co-create, evolve our reality, and change our experiences. Both and thinking allows us to be in this liminal space between everything that we've known and learned, which may or may not serve us for where we need to go, where the future is calling us. We bring it to the table, but if that's all we bring to the table is what we've done, we're going to repeat. We're not going to learn. We're not going to evolve. We're not going to move forward. We have to be able to risk and go into the unknown and think about things that we need to do in the future. We need to think about more than just the either or, the middle, and what's above, what's possible. And again, this happens at the personal, interpersonal, organization, societal level. I'll give you some examples. And it is the path towards. So your inquiry is going to be some things on this. So this slide, let's see, was supposed to be, So let's talk about the personal level, how both and thinking, or if you relate right now to the binary thinking, just notice it's okay because you're learning. So can you hold the truth that you matter, that you are truly valued, you are equal? You're going to get a copy of this slideshow so you don't have to taking notes if you don't want. That's a true, while at the same time, the current culture does not necessarily value you and hold you as equal. That's the ability to hold both of those realities and still make progress. Our current culture values the individual above the tribe. So you either conform to the Catholic Church or you're kicked out of it. You either agree with the tribe as an individual or you're out of it. But where we're going is that the individual contributes to the success of the Catholic Church. So they both are valuable. It's not kick the tribe out or kick the individual out. It's both and. A lot of white supremacy culture values the individual. Whites are individuals. We're unique. We're all these things. And yet blacks are one group and they behave like this. Asians are one group and they behave like this. That's binary thinking. Both and thinking recognizes that nothing's a monoculture. I'm not going to go over all these, but I'm going to go over a few more to give you some examples. When we did the othering exercise last time, there's this inherent built in that we want to be the best we can be. So I was taught, that to succeed in the world, I needed to get an education. I needed to be independent and make my own money. I needed to assert myself as a female. So all of those things are about me being better as a person, but surviving in this world that has a vertical structure. So it's a really slippery slope for me then saying, well, if I'm educated, then I'm better than that person over there who's not educated. Versus it's just a way to better myself. Not everybody needs a college degree to contribute to this world, not at all. To be valued, not at all. I can use it as a marker to better me, but the minute I use it implicitly or explicitly to say I'm better than that person because I have that car, because I have that house, because those are my standards of success, that's a slippery slope. So being able to hold both of those allows me to be aware then of where I might be othering other people. Of course, there's my values and other values. Seeing that differences in the world are in me rather than out there is an actually twist on both and. Moving on to interpersonal, the ability to hold different worldviews and different lived experiences. Like Nick, you in your acknowledgments, you gave a really good example of that where you were saying, I know I don't have the lived experience of these people, these youth that I'm working with, but I'm trying to hold that. That's both and leadership skills right there. Having space just to know that you're not the only one and learning about those. In the interpersonal, can we hold space for values that we have are the same, but values that differ? When we do all this, we're actually we're creating a co-creative energy that can take risks. When you have a both and mentality, you're willing to increase your cultural competence. You have a learning ethic if you want to learn about differences that you don't have, differences that are in you that is not out there. Of course, as you move up to the organization and you start to center equity, not as something separate from your mission, but part of your mission, you begin to live your values. DEI work is foundational to who you are, not something you do as a program or a division over there. You become more accountable to equity and a learning agenda of becoming more inclusive and equitable, more committed in identifying your own biases and stereotypes. It's truly the questions that you start to ask as an organization and who you start to work with and how you do your work changes. And this is where I could give you the EPA study, but I'm going to finish the teaching and see if there's time. And then out in the community, I wanted to lay out these sort of terms that can be used as weaponized as binary, but really look for that both and thinking. So of course, we've spent the last, 40 years, 50 years in this intent versus impact, that if my intent to be a anti-racist, my intent to be inclusive, that's good enough. I don't really have to look at the impact. Well, if you're in binary thinking, you're just going to focus on intent. If you're both and thinking, you're going to make sure your intentions are in alignment and you're going to measure and look and care about and do something about the impact. Whether that's me talking to you, Olivia, or me in an interpersonal conversation with a team, or me as an organization. So there's the both and there. Let me use that example for exclusion and inclusion. Exclusion is part of reality. We exclude every day. Think about a church, a particular religion. It's absolutely exclusive, but it's transparent about its values. It says, a church says, if you believe this and you do these rituals, you can join and be part of us. And if you don't believe in that and don't want to do that, well, then you're excluded, but it's a mutual exclusion. It's not a weaponized. So exclusion itself is not bad. It's about being clear what you stand for. And if you stand for open equity and inclusion and you're transparent about we believe in this and you have processes and procedures and biases and behaviors that actually exclude the very thing that you say you want to do, then that's the kind of exclusion you don't want to have. You want to be very transparent about because being exclusive is a part of being human. A soccer club is exclusive. I don't play soccer. I'm not going to be part of that club, but it's not causing anybody harm. And then I already gave examples of tribalism. Belonging to a group and having that group want to be of like-minded and like people in itself is a human desire, a human need, a human experience. Tribalism is not bad in and of itself. It's when it's weaponized to support that vertical inequality that's the problem. When there's biases and stereotypes and resources that are used and narratives that are used to exclude and cause harm, that's when tribalism is toxic. So how do you become both and? There's a lot of ways, but at the bottom of the slide, I don't know if you can see it, you have to be curious and you have to have courage. You have to be curious and be able to ask questions and open-minded and be willing to learn. You have to have a learning ethic. You have to be willing to take risks and make mistakes. You have to be willing to be the bad guy, to bring up things that nobody wants to look at. They only want to look at one end because it's easier, because it's convenient, because it's faster, because we won't have any blowback if we do. Both and thinking creates conflict, stress, and tension. And if authority doesn't want to manage that, then there isn't going to be leadership that takes you through that. The leadership will just keep things the way they are, will repeat. So you need curiosity and courage to do that. I also wanted to put it in the context of both and thinking in terms of people that are focused just on diversity, are just focused on just equity, not understanding that they're all connected, that each one of those is necessary but not sufficient alone. Both and thinking understands the data you need to collect, the journey that you need to commit to, the connectivity between all of these many outcomes to create what's our truth, is that we're all equal. So I wanted to put it in that context. So with that, that's my teaching for the day. I'm going to stop sharing so I can stop the recording, and I'm going to give you your reflection. And I'll look at the chat while we're doing this. Stop recording.